These highlights from the Probate podcast will help you navigate life transitions like a pro. From senior living to estate planning to probate, you'll learn incredibly useful tips. Be sure to like and subscribe to hear more from Sherry Lund and her expert guests.
So Seamless Senior Transitions is my effort to help people to choose the right senior living for their loved one. For me, my client is always the elderly person. However, the person I interact with is usually a family member. And I just want to help support that decision process. For a long time, I thought of myself as an advocate. And I realized that people usually have plenty of advocates, and what they need is really strong decision support. I had some time as a corporate trainer. Education, teaching people is a key part of who I am. So I try to not just say, oh, here's 3 good places, pick one of them. I try to really break it down, help people understand all the components of what's going into the decision and make their own best decision with the information and tools that I provide. It started back in 2017 after I was pretty far down the path of my dad's journey with dementia. I wasn't pleased with any of the resources I found. I'd worked with one of those online companies quite by accident, and I just wanted to help people to get the help that I knew they needed for finding care for their loved ones.
Yeah, so you said a couple of things there. The online companies, we're not going to name any names, but I've heard that a lot. And prior to getting in this industry, that was, you don't know what you don't know. And
Right.
if both of my parents passed away more than 30 years ago. So I don't have the opportunity to learn this way, but I do want people to learn about it. But if I were in that situation, one of the first things I would do would be to Google and see what comes up. So it's a natural, easy thing to do. And so one of the reasons I want to have you on the podcast is because it's real easy to trip onto those sites and then you get sucked in and then you're limited. And it's hard to understand that unless you've been on a podcast like this. So can you talk a little bit about the online experience and how what you do is different from that?
So when I was going through it with my dad, I jokingly say that I Aaron Brockovich the situation, had a career in the legal field. And so I was like, don't worry, I got this. I'm going to go online and see what information I could find. I didn't even know what search terms to use. I didn't know what I didn't know. B, I felt like some of the websites that I landed on were a bit deceptive. I knew that I was entering into something when I provided my name, email address, and phone number to one of those sites to try to get information. But I thought it was like a gateway to continuing legal research. I didn't realize that it was a representation agreement. That was on me. But what I will say is when you are stressed, when you're upset, when mom or dad's in the hospital, that's not a period of time when we're all thinking the best. So I accidentally ended up in a relationship with one of those online providers. I look back every now and then at what they sent me now that I'm a professional. They sent me, it was just like a smattering of things. It was all different levels of care geographically. It was within a 30-mile radius. I needed places within a 2-mile radius where my Aunt Joyce could visit without having to go on the freeway to visit my dad because she's not a freeway driver. So when you think about it, that's the kind of stuff that you could tell a person and they would take into consideration and they would help you based on that information. But online, they just sent me a smattering of things. I was shell-shocked. I went and toured a bunch of places. Some were okay, most weren't. There was no consideration given to my specific situation and my dad's specific situation. I just wanted to do better for my people. And I think that when you get to know somebody, you get to know what their needs, desires, just get to know them even a little bit, you're going to do better than that.
For sure. In that situation, I would feel like you're not listening to me. You're not hearing me. There's no way I would put my mom here, but you're not talking to anyone in particular, right? You're talking just to a cloud that sent you wrong information. I'm curious, how long was that agreement that they sent you?
So, and they owned me
Wow.
me and my dad for 3 years, I believe.
Oh,
So
wow.
nobody else could help us. Nobody else could negotiate for us, take us around to places because I had entered my name and phone number on there. I had really just kind of signed our rights away. And they don't tell you that. It's really hurtful to think. It feels predatory to me.
It is. It
And, and
absolutely is.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
people.
I try
Yeah.
not to speak negatively, but it just doesn't feel like what I want to provide for my people.
Right. And so that's why you're here. That was the impetus to bring you here.
100%. I thought I can do better than that. And of course, you know where I started, right? I just told you when I started, I didn't know anything. So I had to get a whole bunch of education and go through a lot before I was ready to help families. So that's why there was a bit of a gap in between when I wanted to help families and then when I actually started helping families.
Right. Right.
And even now, I work with families who tell me that they contacted one of those online agencies, or sometimes they just don't even know. And I find out when I'm not allowed to negotiate for them, when I try to start helping them out, and I find out that this online company owns them.
To catch the full episode and explore more resources from the Probate Podcast, check the links in the description and be sure to subscribe for more tips each week.